Hello, adult Sunday school leader. Hey, I have used this example many times before, but I'm going to use it again this week. I have a friend in my Sunday school class, and he's the general manager for the local Toyota dealership. Now, next to Jesus and his family, this guy lives and breathes Toyota more than anything else. Now, how shocked would I be if he constantly touted the benefits and superiority of Toyota, but drove another model of vehicle? Well, first of all, he wouldn't have that job too long, would he? But also, no one would believe him, because if Toyotas are so great, then why isn't he driving one? Well, that's just like a lot of Christians, isn't it? We say we believe in God, we believe he can heal, we believe he's in control, but do we really act like it? Do our words match our actions? Does our walk match our talk? And that's what we're going to be looking at this week as we continue in the unit in James called Living Out Your Faith. This is the third lesson. It's called Faith on Display in Your Actions, and the scripture's out of James chapter 2, verses 14 through 26. The point of this lesson is what you believe is seen in what you do. Well, if you've been in church for some time, there are a couple of verses in this week's text that are very familiar. One of those verses is in our first section of scripture for this week, out of James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. Well, first of all, let's notice that James says, if anyone claims to have faith. A claim to having faith and actually having faith are really two different things, aren't they? Now, what is faith? Well, our pastor has stated many times in the last year that faith is a belief, but it doesn't stop there. It's a belief that leads to an action. Today, I got up at 2:40 a.m. to leave the church at 3:30 a.m. to catch a 5:45 flight. 5 of us flew from Little Rock to Atlanta and then to Spokane, Washington, where I'm at right now, where we'll be assisting a local church with their week of welcome for incoming students at a local university. So if I seem a little out of it, I've almost been up for 24 hours. Well, I believed in that plane. I believed it would take me to my destination, but my belief wasn't enough. I needed action. I needed to get on that plane to show my faith in, to show that I believed in that plane and actually the pilot as well. Well, that's where James is going with this faith and works discussion. James asks, what good is it if someone claims to have faith but has nothing, no works, no deeds to back it up? So a person claims to have faith in God, a belief in God, the God who says, take care of poor people, love your neighbor as yourself, turn the other cheek, don't seek revenge, all those things, but you don't do it. Does that person really have faith, or do they just claim to have faith? Well, Ephesians 2:10 tells us that we were created in Christ Jesus for good works. We were created, so we're a new creation for the purpose of doing good works. So if there are no good works, was there really a new creation? You know, we're not saved by good works, but we're saved for good works. And then he gives an example. Suppose someone's hungry, they need clothes, and you say to them, oh, be warm and well fed. And you don't do anything about it. What good were those words? Now here's the thing. Where's James coming from? Why would he have to mention this? Well, first let's remember the traditional Jewish thought that rich people were blessed from God, and the reason that people were poor or afflicted with some disease was probably due to some sin. So here are a couple of passages to back up that statement. In Matthew 19, where Jesus told the rich young ruler to go and sell everything he had to give to the poor, and Jesus told his disciples it was easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for the rich to enter heaven. The disciples were shocked at that statement, and they said, who then can be saved? All right? Their thought was, if the rich, who were obviously blessed by God, if they can't enter heaven, then who can? Then we look in John chapter 9, when Jesus and his disciples, they ran up on this beggar who was born blind, and his disciples asked Jesus, who sinned? Was it this man, or maybe was it his parents that he was born blind? See, they asked this because they believed any negative in a person's life was due to sin. Now, do you know what's ironic about this? I stated last week that as a rule, early Christians were poor and they were ostracized. The Romans hated them. Their Jewish family disowned them. And it's funny, when we have a particular situation, when we are in that situation, we see it a little differently than if somebody else were in that same situation. Because they were actually being punished, these early Christians were being punished for their faith, which James addressed back in chapter 1, not because they had sinned. Well, let's get back to the James passage. When someone says to the hungry and cold brother or sister, a fellow believer, shalom, go in peace, be warm and well fed. It could be that the one speaking believes that the one suffering is doing so because of some sin. So they don't want to get involved and thwart God's plan of punishment, do they? But James refutes this line of thinking. He basically says, what good does that do? Well, it doesn't do any good. It does absolutely nothing. This lines up with 1 John chapter 3, verses 17 and 18, which says this: if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. Do we do that today? When someone in our church or our Sunday school class is struggling financially, is all we do is to say, well, we'll pray for you. I've got to brag on my Sunday school class. Whenever I put out that there's a need like that, our folks are really good about jumping in and meeting that need. But here's the thing, when someone posts on social media, no, I'm not talking about my class now, but when someone posts on social media that they are suffering and that they're at their wits' end, and people type in all caps, prayers. As a reply to that message, I wonder a couple of things. I wonder, number one, how many people are actually praying for that need, or do they just type the word prayers? And number two, do they really put feet to those prayers, or just hope someone else takes care of the situation? All right, then James makes that familiar statement in verse 17. In the same way, faith, if it is not accompanied by actions, is dead. He repeats this thought down in verse 26 when he writes, as the body is without the spirit is dead, so faith without works, or faith without deeds, is dead. Faith that leads to no action is not faith at all. Saying you believe the plane can fly means nothing until you act and get on board. Our next set of verses are verses 18 through 20, and he gives a hypothetical example here. He says, if someone says, yeah, you have your deeds, but I have faith, that's not going to cut it. Faith and works are not different expressions of Christianity. They work together. Let's liken his response to a couple of poker hands. Now, they're playing for matchsticks, of course. We're not playing for money. And one person claims to have a winning hand, but do they really? Let's put our cards out on the table. Let's find out. Show me your faith without works. Show me your hand. Let's see your hand. Well, wait a minute. You really don't have any cards at all. You just claimed to have a winning hand. But let me show you my hand, my faith by my works, my belief in God that results in action, the action of good deeds. This is a royal flush. Now, granted, that illustration is taking a lot of liberty with the scripture, but I believe James would agree that it's pretty spot on. Now, verse 19 is one of those familiar verses again. You believe there's one God? Good. But demons also believe and shudder. I think the King James says they tremble. In other words, you think being a follower of Christ, being a Christian, is just a mental assent, acknowledgement that God exists? That's a good starting point, but demons believe that. You see, believing that something is true is one thing. It's an acknowledgement. Satan himself knows that there is a God. In fact, he knows without any doubt that the God as he is described in the Bible is exactly true. That's called believing that God exists. However, we are not called to believe that, but to believe in, to put our full faith and trust in God. In John 6:29, Jesus said, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he sent. Jesus did not say to believe that God sent someone. No, He said to believe in the one that God sent. So believing that's head knowledge. It's a mental assent. Believing in is heart knowledge. It's that relationship. Now in verse 20, James takes the argument to the next level. You want more? You want proof? Well, here it goes. And that leads us down to our last set of verses in 21 through 26. He starts off with this example of Abraham, the father of the Jewish faith, exalted guy in Jewish history. And even though he was far from perfect, he believed in God. He had faith in God. It was shown by his actions. He left his home for a land he didn't know anything about. He even went to the point of almost sacrificing his son, the son of the promise, because God told him to do that. And then James uses another Old Testament example, but from the opposite extreme. Rahab. She was a Gentile. She was a woman. She was a prostitute. The opposite extreme of Abraham. She had faith. She heard the reports about what Yahweh had done to his opponents of his chosen people. But the belief wasn't enough. She acted on that. She hid those Jewish spies in her home and she sent them out safely. But you know what? In between those two examples is verse 24. It says this: you see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone. Now your translation may use the word justified instead of righteous. And that verse can be troubling, especially when we know we're saved by faith, not by works, as Ephesians 2, 8, and 9 tell us. Now I'm going to read this long quote, okay? It's from www.bibleref.com. It just said it so well, so I'm going to read this to you. It says in verse 21, James used the concept of justification, which some see as a contradiction to Paul's use of justification in passages such as Romans 4. Here, it is common for a reader to assume a contradiction with Romans 3:28, which says, For we hold that one is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. It's important to remember two things. First, James is not claiming works are required for salvation. His entire argument has been about what kind of faith actually saves. He is on the attack against the attitude that one can be saved by a faith that has no works. He has stated repeatedly that such a faith is dead, it's useless. He's not saying that faith is not the means through which we receive God's grace. He's saying that a so-called faith, which results in no actions, is not a genuine faith. A works-less faith cannot justify anyone. The other thing that it is important to remember is this: James has been consistent in upholding faith as necessary for salvation. This includes his quote in verse 23 that Abraham was counted as righteous for believing God. You see, context is the key to all Bible study, and especially for resolving apparent contradictions. In Paul's writing, it's clear he's describing justification in the sense of salvation, being declared righteous before God. James, according to this context, is referring to justification in the sense of proof for human beings. Faith saves, says James, but saving faith cannot be a mere intellectual opinion which produces no resulting actions. That's a pretty long quote, isn't it? Well, I think that's enough for this week, and that's enough for tonight because I'm pretty tired. Next week we're going to be looking at most of the verses in James chapter 3 about our faith being displayed in our conversation. Well, thanks very much, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, pray for and with your class. I appreciate you guys very much.